Wow, what a show we have for you guys today. We have three amazing guests joining us. David, he is our Democrat. He is in California. Angela, she is our Libertarian. She is in California as well. And new to our program is Austin. He is a Green Party representative in the great state of Ohio. Breaking news today, Facebook is now under investigation. They have several states that have come on board with potentially breaking up Facebook. Angela, tell us a little bit about what that means.
Well, from a libertarian perspective, I really believe that only government enables toxic monopolies. I don't know, maybe you guys, have you heard that Facebook has already received $330 million in government subsidies? I don't I don't support government breaking up companies, but I definitely don't support government giving tax breaks to fit in for large corporations when they increase taxes on small businesses and local human beings. So, you know, the government is suing Facebook. We've got 48 states who are calling for it to be broken up, and that's sort of, that's what's happening. Do I support it? No, but I certainly don't support a bunch of other stuff that's fueling this either.
David, how do you respond to Angela?
Honestly, this is way overdue. Um, Facebook has way too much market power, and we're in a new Gilded Age. I mean, all of the parallels to the Roaring Twenties and what happened with the expansion of the railroads, communications, oil, and the combustion engine. Everything that happened then is basically happening now, but just with all the tech industries. They have way too much power. They're using their power to try and eliminate competition. All right, competition is the only thing that stands, to benefit consumers when we have deregulation anywhere. All right, and so if all they're doing is buying up competitors to try and get an advantage in the marketplace, that's not fair to the consumers. That's not actual true competition. And this is way overdue. And I think it's, in no small part, maybe delayed by the fact that we have 48 states. Okay. That's a whole lot of blue states, whole lot of red states. All right. So this is a bipartisan issue. All right. Panpartisan, I would say. So I'm looking forward to seeing exactly how it works out, how it shakes out, but also what other tech giants could be in the crosshairs, because we would expect to see something like this for Google, for Amazon, for Apple. There's no reason why one should be singled out and not the others. But given the size of them, it's not surprising that the government's taking its time to build a really good case.
Sure. Well, to push back on that, David, obviously doing my job as a host is to get everything out of you that's really going to solidify your point to the viewers, right? So on pushing back to that point, wouldn't it also be a great counterpoint though for these companies? Facebook in itself, purchasing WhatsApp, purchasing Instagram, have gained thousands of jobs. I mean, they grew those companies bigger than they would have potentially been on their own. So, from a Democrat perspective, isn't that a good thing that they've created jobs along the way?
That might be a nice talking point, but factually, it does not seem to play out. If you look at startups, for example, over the past, I believe it's 10 years, we're at one of the lowest points in new companies starting up in American history, right? The companies now starting up, they know that their access to the marketplace is controlled at choke points, which are controlled by these companies. And so if you're not already on board with one of these companies and already cutting them in on it, your ability to compete is virtually non-existent because they control too much of the ecosystem, too much of the market. And that's what's stifling innovation. It's what's stifling entrepreneurship. And so even with these companies, it's simply like whatever they might do after they buy one of these companies, it's not going to create the right kind of jobs, good jobs, because it's not creating the competition we need. We need
Sure.
competition to go ahead and then compete for talent, compete for everything else and the customer.
Excellent. And Austin, what I would mention then to David, looking at his point, he's talking about competition and he's talking about diversity and having more freedom of choice out there. I have to say, you're part of the Green Party, and I think that this goes hand in hand. I'm sure Angela would agree that right now the mainstream media has us really looking at right and left, Republican and Democrat. There is not that much competition, similar to what David is talking about with breaking up Facebook. So, can you kind of weave into the discussion about how the Green Party is feeling the same way?
It's quite exciting that Facebook is finally getting broken up. You know, you brought up jobs, but what are a few thousand jobs when those people who are getting those jobs can't afford to eat? Um, they're being taxed to hell and back by the federal government, who doesn't care about them in the long run when it comes to things such as pandemic relief. Um, Mega corporations like Facebook, Amazon, Lockheed Martin getting billions of dollars in government bailouts when college students are drowning in student debt, when we have migrant men and women trapped in cages. We have uh, Agent Orange from the Vietnam War leaking in oil reserves and streams in Korea. Environmental disasters going on all around the world. The US government has things that serve the material and capitalist interest of empire, but they don't have money for the people at home when it comes to healthcare and food and housing for the people. So it's quite
Sure.
exciting that Facebook is getting broken up. Um, we need more voices and more choices in the system. It goes to everything. The anti-monopoly, antitrust acts of the early 1900s are not being held up in modern law, in modern court, and times have changed. We need to update those. We probably need another amendment in the United States Constitution, uh,
Sure.
if not the state of Ohio's Constitution, to fix those things and to work towards a more open and more fair, equitable system in the economy as well,
Sure.
not just our political system.
Sure, absolutely. So, Angela, to respond to David, looking at breaking up Facebook and potentially having a ripple effect for the future. I mean, what can that possibly be down the line with other companies, like he mentioned, Amazon and whatnot? I mean, from a libertarian, do you see this as being a good thing to start with Facebook, or is this something that is just going to get snuffed out?
No, I'm not in favor of breaking up companies. I don't know how much clearer I can be on that. I don't favor it. I am in favor of reducing regulatory agencies and crony capitalism so that the lobbyists for Facebook, Apple, Google, which is basically, it's called Alphabet, that's their parent company, so that those companies don't have an advantage over larger companies, over smaller companies, I mean. Big tech can pay to play, just like big oil, just like big pharma. They can break rules, they can break laws, they can push everyone else out with regulatory capture, and they look at fines as just the cost of doing business. I'm not in favor of breaking up businesses. I'm in favor of shrinking government so that smaller businesses can compete. Let's give everyone a tax break.
Sure. So, David, does this give the individual then a bigger voice by potentially breaking them up?
Absolutely. And what's strange about, or seems inconsistent about the concept of being against breaking up the companies, but being for a more fair and even playing field that gives people a chance is, if the government's smaller and weaker, we're not going to, like, we will have the current situation. Nothing will stop these companies from abusing their market influence and their market power. The government is the only entity big enough to be able to step in and do that. Because otherwise, why would they not just, even if we break them up and then the government were smaller and unable to enforce antitrust regulations and consumer protections, at that point, they'll just repeat all of the same issues. We literally have watched this happen in American history. Okay, the reason for all of these antitrust laws was in the 1920s. They broke up all these companies, and we still have Ma Bell back together, reassembled through the 90s as we eliminated the regulations that had broken it up in the first place. Suddenly we see this reassembly of these monopolistic powers. Like, this is 100% exactly how markets operate, exactly how capitalism and the players inside it will try to operate. And as much as we can criticize the government, we need a robust and strong government to fight back, because it's the only entity that's strong enough and willing enough, or at least hopefully willing enough and able enough, to be able to stand up to these companies for the people.
Go ahead, Angela, respond.
Government is the monopoly. It's the biggest monopoly. It's got a monopoly on how we are able to engage in commerce in most areas. It's got a global monopoly on violence. It's morally bankrupt. We can't trust government, which murders people overbroad and at home, to enforce any type of rule that is beneficial to people. I believe that the role of government is to defend our rights, and that's it. I don't believe government is here to help us out in any other way.
Austin, I'm going to give you the last word.
I absolutely agree with Angela. The United States does have the United States government does have a monopoly, especially on violence. That's why smashing a Starbucks window is seen as violence. Meanwhile, drone bombing a wedding in Idlib, Syria is seen as, oops, sorry, a mistake. Not only do we need to break up these companies, but we need to put them in the hands of the workers with workers' councils. No more CEOs, no more bigwig bosses that hold accountability to nobody. We need elected workers' representatives to run these organizations, to bring democracy back into the workplace as well. So the workers can decide where the profits go. The workers can decide what they should produce and how much they should produce. It's not government, it's not some big business crony, it's the people who actually work there and make the profits for the companies that are deciding what to do, how to do it, and where it should go.
Excellent. And if you, the viewer, have a comment on this, please drop your comment below. If you'd like to reach out to one of these individuals, their handles will be in the description below. So if you want to reach out to them on Twitter or on Instagram or Facebook, they'll be in the description below. So please reach out to them if you'd like to voice your opinion as well. If I'm doing a great job as a host, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. We've got a lot more coming to you very soon.